I think we can find out who will win the FIFA World Cup. Because it is possible to predict who would win on the FIFA 2026 matches, each match by using math. Believe it or not, this is the absolute best football prediction system out there, and it's being maintained by some random guy on an internet forum out there. And according to this data, barring some black swan event, the best team is going to win the World Cup this year, and that is Spain. So how do we get to that conclusion? Well, with the tournament kicking off in less than 24 hours, the thing I am most hype about isn't the pre-game shows, it's the data. We get to use this incredible math formula originally created for chess grandmasters that completely cuts through the noise and predicts the odds better than the official ranking ever could. If you ever played online competitive game, you know this rating, because the ELO rating comes in different names for different games. But most of you would know them as MMR, matchmaking ratings, whether they'd be called CS rating, rank rating, mythic stars, or rank points. And the wider the rating is, the better it is to tell you who's going to get destroyed in the match and who's going to win. So look at how this math engine exposes what the official ranking missed. FIFA already gave us their answer. They say Argentina is the best because they won the last tournament. And the official ranking just nodded along and put them at number 1. But the ELO ratings says otherwise. This gorgeous system that's been quietly tracking international football data since the 1870s look at the exact set of teams and says, actually, no, it's Spain. And the data gap is fascinating. Here's the current skill rating level. Spain is sitting at 2157, while Argentina is at 2114. That's the model looking past the trophy and saying, look at the underlying metrics. Spain dominated their qualifying matches leading up to this tournament, while Argentina's midfield variance is highly unstable. So let me pull back the curtain for a second. How does this system actually turn these raw numbers into win probabilities? Instead of guessing, the model uses a formula that basically acts like a giant probability curve. It looks at the point gap between two teams, factors in whether anyone has a home field advantage, and translate that distance into a clean percentage. It doesn't try to predict a scoreline, it doesn't care who scores the goals. It just tells you the exact mathematical chance of a team walking away with a win. And here's a quick cheat sheet so you can do the rough conversions in your head while watching the tournament. If two teams are perfectly even, the gap is 0, and then it's a perfect 50-50 coin flip. A 50-point gap between their ELO ratings gives the favorite a single edge at 57%. 100-point bumps that into 64%. A 200 points get you to 67% gap for that chance of winning or losing. By the time you get to hit 400-point gap, the curve flattens out near at the top, giving the favorite a 91% win probability. And if you ever seen a 500-point chasm, the model is basically yawning and giving them a 95% chance of winning. That is basically a celestial rank player destroying anyone in the medal rank. The home point bonus is the simple variable in the whole equation. If Mexico, the United States, or Canada are playing in their own country, we add a flat 100 points to their baseline rating for that match. That's it. Crowd noise, travel fatigue, referee bias, all those complicated human factors just get compressed into that single mathematical nudge. And for every other game, we treat the venue as completely neutral. No boost, no deductions, just the raw numbers. Of course, the system has blind spots. It doesn't know if a star player tweaked a hamstring in training or if a team just had a terrible night's sleep. And it treats a penalty shootout, that crazy tiebreaker where players take turns kicking from the spot after some extra time, as pure random chance, because honestly it basically is. But as a starting point, as a way to see through the hype and branding and patriotic montages, this is the cleanest lens we have. Now, before we jump into the matches, you need to know the basic tournament structure because the format is what makes this whole simulation fun. 48 teams are split into 12 groups of 4. In each group, everybody plays everybody once. The top 2 from each group automatically advances. But because it's a 48 team tournament, there's a twist. The 8 best third place finishers also grab a ticket to the knockout rounds. That gives us a 32 team bracket. Single elimination. Lose once and you're done. And that's the path we will trace with the ELO, all the way to the final. And this is where the predictability gets absolutely fascinating. Take tomorrow's opener between Mexico and South Africa. The official FIFA ranking has Mexico as 15, which sounds fairly middling until you look at how the math handle variables. ELO quantifies home field advantage as that flat 100 point boost to the baseline. Suddenly, Mexico jumps from 1875 to an adjusted 1975 skill rating. South Africa is sitting at 1517 skill rating. That gives us a massive 458 point gap. As we just talked about on our cheat sheet, a gap that big translates to a 91% win probability for the favorite. So while the pre-game broadcast is hyping up the emotional narrative, the math is telling us that the opening match is statistically a foregone conclusion. Mexico's probability matrix is just too strong. But the second match that day, that is a data nerd's dream. South Korea versus Czech Republic. South Korea comes in at 7058 skill rating, and the Czech are at 1740 skill rating. This is a razor-thin 18-point difference, which gives South Korea a 53% win probability. In other words, a total statistical coin flip. And what I love about this model is its mathematical honesty. It doesn't try to manufacture a storyline about tactics or star players. The computer just looks at the data, shrugs, and says, these two distributions are functionally identical. It's a toss-up. And this is our first major insight from the model. When the gap is massive, the predictive signal is incredibly strong. When the gap is tiny, the math is telling you that anyone who claims to know what will happen is just guessing. Moving on to day 2. The math uncovers another brilliant storyline. Canada against Bosnia and Herzegovina. Canada gets the sweet host nation bump, lifting them to an adjusted rating of 1888 against Bosnia's 1599. That gives Canada an 84% win probability. The system shows a highly stable path to victory for Canada. But then, later that evening, the United States plays Paraguay. This is where the home field variable gets really wild. The base rating for the United States team is 1726. Even when you factor in the 100-point boost, they only hit 1826. Paraguay's base rating is 1834. Do the math on that. Even with a roaring home crowd, the Americans are actually 8 points worse on paper. Paraguay holds a 51% theoretical edge. The model is showing that the host nation is mathematically an underdog in their own stadium. That kind of quote objective precision is exactly why I love this data. It doesn't care about the name on the jersey, it just solves the equation. And the real magic happens when you scale this up from single matches to the entire tournament simulation. You can project an entire group stage by running the probability matrices for every single fixture. For Group A, the most likely statistical outcome puts Mexico on 9 points, South Korea on 6, and Czech Republic on 3, and South Africa on 0. But we get to map this out using the tournament's complex new format. 48 teams, 12 groups, and calculating the top 8 third-place finishers to see who sneaks into the knockout rounds. To do this, we can simulate FIFA's nightmarish grid of 495 possible structural scenarios using baseline ratings as our tiebreaker matrix. And when you run those algorithmic projections all the way to the end of the bracket, it spits out an absolutely legendary final. Spain against Argentina at MetLife Stadium on July 19th. Spain's 21-57 rating against Argentina's 21-14. That is a 43-point gap, which works out to a 56% win probability for Spain. And notice how the certainty collapses at the summit. It isn't a bold proclamation, it's a statistical whisper. The model is saying that after simulating thousands of iterations, these are undeniably the two best teams on the planet, and one of them has a fraction of a competitive edge. There is something profoundly cool about the humility of the conclusion. After all the data processing and the heavy lifting, the math looks at the biggest game in the world and says it's a coin flip with a tiny tilt. And then we can go watch and see the reality unfold. So that is the master plan. For every single match in this tournament, I want to see the ELO differentials, the live win probabilities, and a quick read on what the model is seeing. I want to track the upsets and then recalculate the groups in real time and run the simulation all the way to the trophy. Not because the math is always right, but because when reality breaks the model, that's the most exciting data point of all. Right now, on paper, everything is cool and orderly and predictable, but tomorrow, the first whistle blows and the numbers have to face the beautiful chaos of the real game. Let's find out what happens. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, will ya?